Welcome to Townsends Wilderness Homestead. We have an incredible special guest today.
Hello, my name is Joe Pera, and today I'm going to learn how to survive in the 18th century.
Joe, welcome back to the homestead.
Thanks, John. I got some gambling debts and figured they wouldn't find me here.
I've got one afternoon to teach Joe how to survive in the 18th century. We're going to cover the big three: how to make fire, how to make shelter, and how to make some food. So it is really cold in here. Joe, what do you know about making fire?
I think I could manage if I had some matches, but I don't think we've got those, do we?
No, we don't have matches, but we do have all it takes right here on the table.
That sounds great.
So the major ingredients for fire here in the 18th century, if we're doing the typical way we're going to start a fire, not maybe rubbing sticks together, but we're going to use flint and steel. But flint and steel aren't enough to make a fire. They just make some sparks. We need something to catch a spark and actually start to glow red hot. So for that, we're going to be using char cloth. Without char cloth or something very similar to it, you can't start a fire. You'll make sparks all day, no fire. As soon as we get a little bit of glowing ember in our char cloth, then we need something extremely fine. So we're going to be using some rope. We're going to tease it into a little nest of fibers. That will burst into flame. But that's not really starting a fire either. That's like 10 seconds of flame. That doesn't do anybody any good. So then we need tinder, the smallest wood, and then we can go with a little bit bigger piece of wood and then a true fire, a nice big chunk of firewood.
Sounds good right now.
So the first thing we need to do is make our little mouse nest of fibers. So we've got little pieces of rope here. We need to tease this out until it's just a little ball of fluff. You can see it starts to fray.
Yeah.
We'll just tease that open until we have it all fuzzed up.
That makes sense. There are a number of ways to tease a piece of rope. Would you always use rope, or are there other things that you could use in instead if you don't have it available?
Any small fiber will do. You can go to get, like in a place like we're at, the inner bark of trees. You can break that up and make a real fine fiber out of that. Different kinds of weeds, anything that's, even dry grass will work.
That makes sense. Would the average person have extra rope hanging around?
Oh yeah, it's a real typical, you don't throw away anything, and an old rope is what you got.
Winter is probably my favorite season, but it seems like almost certainly the harshest for people in the 18th century. There must have been a lot of homesteaders who had a tough time getting through every single winter, right?
It was a struggle to survive, and people talked about that in their journals. People, saying, I can't write anymore because the ink has frozen in my inkwell, right? You can't even write in your journal anymore. And I think most people just sort of hold up, right? They stayed in their cabin, they stayed close to the fire, and they slept most of the time because there was nothing else to do, and it was the only way to stay alive. This is a great nest. We're not going to need all this. We want it enough so that we'll make 2 or 3 little sample fires here. So this is really good. We're going to make this into a little bit tighter nest, kind of like a little cup. We're going to put this char cloth in the center of it, like it was the egg, right? Just like that.
What is the char cloth made out of?
The char cloth is made out of a fabric like a linen or a cotton, and it's pre-burnt. Now you noticed you had it in your hand. It is very delicate stuff.
Yeah.
It's so pre-burnt that it's just before it turns to ashes. And you have to burn it in a special way or else it'll just turn to ashes. This will catch a spark, any spark, and it will start to smolder and burn. And here's our flint and steel. The flint is just a very, very hard rock, very close to glass. And then the steel isn't just any steel, but it's a high carbon steel that it's hardened to a particular point so that it sparks very easily. And the sparks are actually, what we're doing is we're shaving off little pieces of steel. And that act of driving the steel off is, it creates a lot of energy, and all that energy is in that little tiny piece of metal, which makes it incandescent. So if we can get a spark on that. There we go. See that? You see it glowing there?
Yeah.
Okay. There it is, on fire.
John wants me to give it a go on my own, so I'm going to make a nest like he did, or do my best to. I'll take the burn cloth, put it in the middle. It's a little bigger than his. I hope he doesn't tell me I'm being wasteful. Okay, I think my gloves are on fire. Doing all right. Didn't burn my gloves too bad, but figured out the nest. So John tasked me with building a full fire and seeing if I could do it. I hope I don't embarrass myself too bad. I'm gonna set up 2 logs in the back of the fireplace. Set a smaller one on top of it. I've got this kindling here. I'll rest it on the log. And my goal will be to lay the nest on fire and then stick it underneath the kindling. Hope it'll catch, and then the bigger logs from there. Let's see how we do. So I got a big wad of teased rope. I'm gonna fashion into a nest. I'm gonna take my burn cloth, stick it in the middle again. Keep it away from my face this time. I get the flint and steel. There we go. Ouch. I think we got something. I'm gonna let it go and see what happens. I found one of the things is the easy way to screw up a fire is tinkering with it too much. So. John's getting some water from the well, so he asked me to chop some wood for the fire. This will be nice.
Joe, obviously you have passed the fire survival test.
Thanks, John.
How does it feel?
Very good. I mean, the burn cloths just make it so easy.
Right. And I mean, you only lost some of your eyelashes.
A little bit. It'll be, yeah, they grow back.
Yeah. Now let's move on to food. I've picked probably the easiest thing ever, cheesy toasts.
What the heck could that possibly be?
Well, it's known as Welsh rabbit, or today they call it Welsh rarebit.
So I'm sorry, when you said cheesy toast earlier, I thought it was just gonna be cheese on toast. And I know how to make that, but it's a little bit more interesting than that, right?
Yeah, we're gonna take egg yolk and cheese and a little bit of Madeira wine. We'll mix that up in a frying pan and make it into a cheese sauce. Then we'll make the toasts, spread that on. It's going to be really good.
That sounds good.
It's the classic comfort food from the 18th century, and it's one of my favorites. Let me walk you through this. We've got just about the exact amount of cheese we need here, but to make it break down and melt easier, if you cut it up into 2 or 3 pieces and put it in the frying pan, that'll be easy.
Sure. I could do that. It's all right, I cut on the table like this.
Oh yeah, it's perfect.
Add a little flavor.
Yeah. And now just take one of those eggs, we'll take one away. You can separate the yolk and go ahead and put the yolk right in the pan with the eggs.
Okay. Oops.
Perfect.
Nice orange start.
Yeah. And we'll probably need about a tablespoon of butter.
How's that?
Looks great. On the fire, we're gonna place it over some coals. We don't want it to heat up really, really fast. We don't want to make scrambled eggs, right? So we're gonna just drag some coals out, which is what we do to make sure that we have a low fire, and we'll slowly stir these up all together to make a nice smooth sauce.
Sounds good.
As this warms up, we'll slowly add the Madeira wine.
Just waiting on the cheese to melt down. It should be interesting. A little bit about me, I do eat eggs and cheese just about every morning, but never with wine, so I'm curious how this will taste. Pretty nice, just 2 guys in a cabin with nothing to do other than make cheesy toast. Just scoop it on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How much egg, cheese, and wine paste do you want on your bread?
Lots.
You got it. How's that?
Looks good.
Well, it's not fancy. A lot of calories though, huh? Is that it?
Nope. You do the honors.
You serious?
Yes.
To all my haters, look at me now, doing the nutmeg for John.
This is the test. Did you pass or did you fail?
I hope I didn't fail. It's just cheese and bread.
I call that a full-on pass. You did a great job.
Thanks.
It's got some great flavors, just the right amount of nutmeg.
The wine is interesting. Can't believe I'm saying this, but it gives like the eggs and cheese like a little bit of depth of flavor that I've never experienced before.
Because we're on the frontier, we don't have the full recipe. Sometimes you add a little bit of mustard to it, which you would think, wait, no, it's great.
Yeah, no, anything to make it a little bit more orange even.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it varied person to person, but was it important to ration out the food at the beginning of the winter, or did you just kind of adjust as you went?
You know what? At the beginning of winter, about Christmas time, at the beginning of the year, they did have special holidays actually to eat more. But then after that, you have to be a lot more careful with how you're eating. And so even the holidays that are after that are about eating less, or about special kind of restricted diets, because people just naturally didn't have as much food.
The sleeping makes sense then. You probably, not only do you get to stay warm, but you're using less calories.
Well, it's been nice and warm and comfortable. Now it's time for the real test. We're gonna go out into the woods and make some shelter.
Sorry about this, but John asked me to remove the branch from the tree. Maybe this is too behind the scenes, but what's the worst injury somebody sustained while working on a Townsends video?
All I can say is no one's ever died.
We got our stick between the trees. What's the next step? I assume they don't have ready-made tents.
So sometimes they had tents, but most of the time it seems like when you see images or even hear about stories, say like Nicholas Cresswell, they're just kind of using a piece of canvas, or they'll use just a blanket. They'll survive in, a rainstorm, and they'll just put blankets together or some kind of a tarp as their shelter. And it is pretty amazing when you read in some of the journals about people surviving and they don't even have a blanket. They would just kind of curl up on the ground and ride out a stormy night. And I can't fathom that. Thankfully, we've got a blanket and we've got a nice tarp here. So we'll stretch this out with a little bit of rope and see what we can make.
Sounds good.
We tied it up here. Yeah, that's perfect. We'll tie it up to these trees and then we'll stretch the back out and stake it down.
Seeing just how important rope was for everything.
Oh, unbelievable.
I'm sorry. Not an expert, not tire. There goes the donkey again.
It seems like a complicated way to do it, but I don't want to cut this rope as much as possible. So we're going to extend this rope from one side all the way to the other, tying knots here on the corners so it holds it out tight.
That makes sense.
There we go.
How's that?
Yep, looks good.
Okay. I'm sorry. I wish I was better with knots, but despite looking it, I was never a Boy Scout. When there was about the age to form a group, all the dads got together. I decided that no one wanted to be the head of the Boy Scouts, so there just was no Boy Scouts that year. Now I'm learning to tie knots at age 22 out here today. Oh, very nice. Will this be enough even in the middle of winter?
Oh yeah, more than enough. We'll have a nice fire right here. It'll reflect the heat off, keep the rain or the elements off of us. This is perfect. More than most people had.
Really?
Really. Joe, you've done it. You have learned how to survive in the 18th century. You have passed the incredible test of making a fire with flint and steel. You've cooked by the fire, you've made wonderful toasted cheese. A total pass. I loved it. And this shelter, yes, this shelter would keep you alive in the winter. You know exactly how to survive in a terrible winter storm. So how does it make you feel?
It was actually a pretty pleasant day. We made a fire, made a nice snack, and now we're out here enjoying the sunshine. Definitely not what I expected when you said winter survival video. Thought I was gonna get pushed to my limits.
Well, the next big snowstorm, are you ready to go out in the yard and survive?
Definitely. Yeah, I think so. Now that we've survived, you got a question about thriving. It might be a little weird, but about 75% of my fans deal with eczema during the winter. What would they do about it back then?
I think the classic answer here is hog's lard.
Really?
Yeah.
How would you use it?
Just scoop that up right out of that tub and smear it on. That's gonna be the best moisturizer you can imagine. Yet you might smell a little funny. You might attract flies, but it doesn't smell that bad, right? And you want smooth skin. That's more important than a little bit of smell. They used it for cosmetics. They used it for hair cream. They used it for all sorts of things. You got a squeaky hinge? Use a little hog's lard.
Why hog's lard as opposed to another kind of lard? Duck fat?
Well, hog's lard is probably the most common thing. It's in every single kitchen. Everyone's got a little tub of hog's lard lying around. It's something you use for food preservation.